Welcome to the second in a three-part series on some ideas of the philosophers that made it big. But by made it big, I really mean they escaped from the university, so to speak, and they caused a whole lot of trouble. These are ideas that came from philosophy that have been highly influential, but also really bad. You may have been taught these ideas in school. You may even think that these are the only ways to think. You may think these ideas are correct and obvious, and you may not even realize that these ideas are highly questionable. You may not realize that they are philosophy ideas and that they are ideas from bad philosophy at that. And if that's you, then, well, this video is here to correct your miseducation. Still, if that doesn't sound like any fun at all, we can phrase it this way. I'm here on behalf of philosophers to correct one of our mistakes. Now, before I go any further, let me clarify that what we're looking at here on the left is my ricochet.com post on the subject, which I'll just go over for this video in brief. And what we're looking at lower right screen, I hope, is some nice range of panty flowers. And if there's anything else wrong with the screen, I don't know what to tell you. Zoom has been abusing me today. And I really hope there's not a huge gray square somewhere middle, slightly right on your screen. But I don't know how to stop it if there is, because Zoom is being a real jerk today. Now, philosophers told you that fact statements and value statements are never the same thing, and we were totally wrong when we said that. Fact statements and value statements are definitely the same thing, at least sometimes. I'm going to pause this and see if I can adjust the lighting. I think that's a little bit better, not much. All right, fact statements and value statements are the same thing, at least sometimes. So one way of thinking that seems pretty common, at least I've seen it a number of times, is to say that fact statements are simple statements of what is, and value statements are statements of what ought to be. Now, obviously, there is a distinction between statements of what ought to be and statements of is. Statements of what ought to be are statements about the future, and statements of what is are statements not about the future, they're statements about the present. Nevertheless, this distinction does not mean that there's no such thing as a fact statement that's also a value statement. And here's one reason why, one pretty simple reason. Ought statements do exist. For example, I ought to brush my teeth tonight. And since ought statements exist, so do would be good if statements. I ought to brush my teeth tonight entails it would be good if I brush my teeth tonight. In fact, I think they mean the same thing. I ought to brush my teeth tonight. Maybe they don't mean the same thing. Certainly one entails the other. I ought to brush my teeth tonight entails it would be good if I brush my teeth tonight. But once we can recognize the existence of would be good if statements, on the screen there's a typo, I'm sorry, this should say would be good if. If we can recognize the existence of would be good if statements, then we have to recognize the existence of is good that statements. A would be good if statement cannot exist unless there's also a corresponding is good that statement. It would be good if I brush my teeth tonight. Doesn't mean anything unless there's also a meaningful statement. It is good that I have brushed my teeth tonight. Now, one does not entail the other. One only entails the existence of the other. A would be good that statement entails the existence of an is good that statement. It doesn't entail that that statement is true. We'll elaborate on this in just a moment. Let's first go over a one day late example. Maybe it'll be a little clearer. It's Tuesday at the moment as I'm recording this. 24 hours ago, I could say I ought to brush my teeth tonight. And that would be an ought statement and a correct one. And that entails the statement, well, let's make it time indexed, shall we? 24 hours ago, I could have said, I ought to brush my teeth Monday night. And that entails the truth of it would be good if I brush my teeth Monday night. And that entails the existence of the statement, it is good that I brush my teeth on Monday night. And that statement was not at the time true because I hadn't brushed my teeth yet. But it is true now that I have brushed my teeth on Monday night, and that's a good thing. Now, every ought statement means that there is such a thing as an is good that statement. But try not to get tripped up. We have two moves here. First, we move from the truth of one statement to the truth of another statement. I ought to brush my teeth tonight, therefore, it's true that I ought to brush my teeth tonight, therefore it's true that it would be good if I brush my teeth tonight. But the second move is from a true statement to a statement that's not true yet, but should be true. From it would be good if I brush my teeth tonight, true, to the existence of a statement, it's good that I haven't brushed my teeth yet. And that was not true, but we moved from the existence of a would be good if statement. Sorry, we moved from the truth of a would be good if statement to the existence of an is good that statement. Would be good if statements are not the same thing as is good that statements. An ought statement entails the truth of a would be good if statement, but it does not entail that an is good that statement is true. However, it does entail that an is good that statement exists. And the statement exists and is not true, but it's my responsibility to make it true, and that's what ethics means. Ethics means there is such a thing as a real good that can be accurately described, or if this language is any clearer, toss out some synonyms. Ethics means there is such a thing as a genuine, an actual, a factual good that can be accurately described by some is statement. And there is an ought statement. There is such a thing as an ought statement that aims at that real good. This is something small children understand. Small children understand that candy is good. So that's why that chocolate bar picture is up there. Small children understand that candy is good. They're right about this. Now, they don't always necessarily make correct inferences from statements like candy is good to statements like, therefore, mommy and daddy should give me lots of candy. Maybe on Halloween, you can make a correct inference or something like that. But often children make bad inferences here. But they are totally correct about the existence of statements about what is good. Candy is good. That's a fact. And that we can make correct inferences from those statements to other statements. Now, if there's anyone who really doesn't like candy for dental reasons or some other reason, something about processed sugars being bad, just go with fruit or something. Go with fruit. Go with well-cooked, delicious chicken or something. Go with anything that works. Broccoli. We don't always necessarily make correct inferences from the type of food we like. Boiled broccoli with cheese sauce with some salt on top of it, the kind my mother makes. That's a very good thing. And we don't necessarily make correct inferences from that too. Someone should give me that, a whole lot of it right now. But you can make correct inferences from it, from is good that statements. And small children correctly understand that until bad philosophy beats it out of them. What sort of bad philosophy would that be? Well, in the former video in this series, drawing from a former Ricochet post in the series, I went over the idea that all knowledge can be verified, which is incorrect. And this is an idea you can blame on David Hume. Now, maybe this is a little imprecise. I probably should have said all knowledge of a world outside the mind can be verified. That's what Hume thinks. And you can blame also his followers, the logical positivists. These are some philosophers who follow David Hume in this, and David Hume is this early modern Scottish philosopher who says this sort of thing. And I think we can also blame Hume and the logical positivists for the error that says facts are never fact claims and value claims are never the same thing. I think it's their influence that trains us to think that facts and values can never be the same. Specifically, logical positivism tells us that value claims are not verifiable, but all meaningful statements about a world outside the mind are verifiable, and therefore value statements are not meaningful statements about the world. The logical positivists are more likely to say that what we think of as value statements are not in fact statements at all. They are expressions of emotion. And so if I say stealing is wrong, I'm not making a statement about stealing. I'm expressing my negative emotions about stealing. Now, this is the central claim of emotivism, which was touted by logical positivists like A.J. Ayer here. Now, the story of this particular incorrect way of thinking has been told in glorious detail by some good folks like C.S. Lewis in his book, The Abolition of Man, and Alistair MacIntyre in After Virtue. I'm not sure if a complete, detailed, thorough and accurate account of all of this has been told, but MacIntyre and Lewis at least do a superb job telling large parts of the story and critiquing emotivism. Those are good books. I myself, in this nifty little book, Science Fiction and the Abolition of Man, Finding C.S. Lewis in Sci-Fi Film and Television, I myself give a brief overview of this story myself. That was redundant, myself. I'll make a few more observations here and wrap up this video. First, just a simple observation borrowed from MacIntyre's analysis, or maybe it's not so simple. There's this myth that says you cannot go from an is statement to an ought statement. MacIntyre, not thinking independently any more than I am. I'm not thinking independently. I'm borrowing from MacIntyre. MacIntyre was also borrowing from some other philosophers. And McIntyre explains, borrowing from those other philosophers, that you can totally get from an is statement to an ought statement. You can infer an ought statement from an is statement. You can go from an is statement as a premise to an ought statement as a conclusion. Say something about how Silas is a gardener, and that tells you something about what Silas ought to do. For example, he ought to water the plants. Now, go to a second observation. Aristotle is not the only ethicist who gives an account of the proper functioning of the human being in his account of, well, in Venn diagram terms, of the overlapping region of fact statements and value statements. But he is one of the greatest who does that. Some might say he is the greatest, except maybe for someone else who built on Aristotle and maybe went into more detail or explained some other stuff Aristotle left out, maybe corrected a few mistakes. If you're interested in that sort of thing, Alistair McIntyre here in After Virtue is himself drawing from Aristotle, and Thomas Aquinas draws from Aristotle, and those are also very fine philosophers in the same tradition. The idea of the proper functioning of the human being. I think if you look at the Greek text of Aristotle, you'll find the word ergon, E-R-G-O-N in the English, epsilon, rho, gamma, omicron, nu in the Greek. The ergon, the function, the work that is proper to the human being, is the central concept of Aristotelian ethics. And here's a simple insight from Aristotle on how virtue works. There are some things that we need to have in our lives, but we need to not have too much of them. One of those things is facing danger. We do need to face danger sometimes, and we really don't want to overdo it. And we also need to pursue physical pleasure, and we really shouldn't overdo that either. If we didn't have some physical pleasure, all our field would be as boring as unflavored oatmeal, and we would almost never have any babies. But we certainly should not overdo the pursuing of physical pleasure. And that means we need a balance. We need to balance those particular things. We need to have in our lives some pursuit of physical pleasure, and we need to have in our lives some facing of danger, not too much, not too little. The virtue is the balance, not too much, not too little. The virtue is the balance. I still have to explain to my students, we're not balancing virtue. You can't have too much virtue. Virtue is the balance, and you can't balance a balance. It doesn't mean anything to balance a balance, and it doesn't mean anything to balance a virtue. What is meaningful is the idea of balancing the pursuit of physical pleasure, don't have too much or too little of that, and balancing facing danger, don't have too much or too little of that. The right balance of facing danger is the virtue of courage. Facing danger too much is a vice called rashness. Facing it too little is a vice called cowardice. Pursuing physical pleasure in the right way, of the right balance, that's called moderation, or in some translations, temperance. Pursuing physical pleasure too much is the vice of indulgence. Pursuing physical pleasure, using the translations of Aristotle, pursuing physical pleasure too little, that's the vice of insensibility. And these are correct value statements. These are factual principles for evaluating human behavior. That is what Aristotle is about. That is what ethics is about. And that is a partial account of the overlap of fact statements and value statements. And that is also the end of this video. Thanks for watching. And I really hope Zoom didn't screw up what was on your screen. But if it did, I don't think there's anything I can do to fix it at this point.